this hour, China slaps tariffs on more than 100 U.S. products, everything from pork to nuts, even wine. More than a dozen dead in Gaza. Now some world leaders are demanding an investigation. And Kim Jong-un gets a K-pop concert in Pyongyang. We'll have all that and much more ahead at the International Desk. Welcome, I'm Lynda Kinkade. China is striking back, slapping tariffs on $1 billion worth of U.S. exports. Beijing making good on its threat of retaliation against the United States after President Trump imposed tariffs on imports from China. It's just the latest move in escalating tensions between the world's two largest economies that's sparking global fears of a trade war. Our Ivan Watson has more from Beijing.
Lynda, China announced it was retaliating for tariffs that the Trump administration imposed on steel and aluminum imports last month. China's finance ministry said that this seriously damaged Chinese interests. So in response, China levied tariffs on about 128 U.S. products, divided into two groups. Group 1 got a 15% tariff. That includes fruits, nuts, wine, and steel pipes from the U.S. Group 2 got a 25% tariff, and that includes pork and recycled aluminum. Now, this is basically a drop in the bucket. It affects about $3 billion worth of U.S. imports to China when you compare the total bilateral trade in 2016, which was close to $650 billion. This really is a drop in the bucket. Unless, of course, you are working and your livelihood depends on one of the sectors that is impacted here. For example, the pork industry in the U.S. The National Pork Producers Council in the U.S. Published a warning last month about the danger of a trade war and highlighted the fact that U.S. hog farmers, they export about $1.1 billion worth of pork to China. It is the U.S.'s third largest market for pork exports. So people in that sector of the industry might be quite a bit nervous when their exports suddenly spiked in cost some 25%. And the Trump administration has been threatening further tariffs on a much larger sector of $50 to $60 billion worth of Chinese imports to the U.S. in response for allegations of theft of intellectual property. We can anticipate that if those threats are followed through by the Trump administration, then the Chinese would respond in kind. Lynda?
All right, our thanks to Ivan Watson for that report. We're joined by CNN senior economics analyst Stephen Moore, who is live in Washington. Thanks for being with us, Stephen.
Hi, Lynda.
The Trump administration has tariffs worth $50 billion of products. China's announcement of tariffs of $3 billion is really hardly tit for tat. This is a very modest response, isn't it?
It is, but it's exactly the wrong response from Beijing. And you see the markets are down a little bit this morning, Lynda. I think there is nervousness about a possible trade war. I've talked with Donald Trump many times about this. I mean, his attitude is that, look, China needs access to American markets more than we need access to theirs. And China will be the big loser here if this escalates. I mean, look, everyone loses in a trade war, but China has the most to lose. And I think their response, one other quick thing, Lynda, having been, spent time with Donald Trump, I think as a lot of people understand, this is a counterpuncher. I mean, if you punch him, he'll punch back. And so, you could see possibly Trump, rather than saying, okay, we'll relax these tariffs, maybe actually increasing the tariffs that we're putting on China. By the way, what really has Trump angry is two things. Number one, you just heard the story about the fact that China is stealing a lot of our technology. We can't allow that to continue. And number two, that China does have a lot of tariff and non-tariff trade barriers against American goods and services, and Trump can't live with that.
And it's interesting to note, Stephen, some of the reporting about the way China is targeting these tariffs, specifically aimed at Trump territory, Trump's base, states which will be affected by this are Trump supporters, right?
Well, that's exactly what it appears that that Beijing is trying to do here. Lynda, you're exactly right. You know, I'm a Midwesterner myself. I grew up in Illinois. Now, Illinois is actually a state that went for Hillary Clinton, but most of the Midwest, you know, went for Donald Trump. And that's, you know, that's hog country. That's an area where you do have a lot of agricultural products and a lot of pork products. And so there is no question. It looks very, let me put it like this, it looks very suspicious that some of those targeted tariffs that Beijing has announced today are really directed at the areas of the country that voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, quite strategic. Stephen Moore, good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.